Michael Rocke's Forbidden Friendships is a historical study of male homosexuality in Renaissance Florence. Drawing from court records, official reports, and personal testimonies, Rocke explores how same sex relations among men were woven into the city's social life despite being officially condemned by both church and law. The book reveals a complex picture of sexuality, showing how male intimacy, friendship, and desire were shaped by culture, class, and religion during one of Europe's most creative and contradictory periods. The book's title, Forbidden Friendships, refer to how close relationships between men, often accepted as part of normal social life, could cross invisible boundaries and become acts of moral and legal transgression. In 15th century Florence, same sex activity was not limited to small secret groups but was widespread, especially among young men. This challenges the common assumption that homosexuality in early modern Europe was a hidden or marginal behavior. Rocke begins by describing Florence as a city of youth and masculinity. During Renaissance, public life, education, and work were largely male centered. Men gathered in workshops, guilds, and streets, while women were mostly confined to domestic spaces. These all male environment naturally created strong emotional bonds among men, sometimes turning into erotic or sexual relationships. Homosexual acts were technically illegal and considered sinful by the church, but in practice they were common and often treated with a degree of tolerance, at least until the authorities decided to act more harshly. To understand this contradiction, Rocke studies the work of the Officers of the Night, a special police force created in 1432 specifically to investigate and punish sodomy, the term used at the time for male same sex acts. The records of this office, which continued its work for more than 70 years, provide a detailed and often shocking view of sexual behavior in Florence. Thousands of men were accused or convicted, ranging from apprentices and laborers to artists, merchants, and nobles. These documents form the heart of Rocke's research and make the book one of the significant studies of sexuality in pre modern Europe. From these records, Rocke reconstructs how Florentine society understood and practiced male sexuality. Most homosexual relationships followed a pattern shaped by age and social status. Typically, an older man, often in his 20s or 30s, would take a younger partner, usually a teenager or apprentice. This age structured model resembled the ancient Greek idea of paiderasty, where the older partner acted as a mentor and protector. Such relationships were sometimes viewed as part of a young man's social education, though still morally suspect. The younger partner was expected to grow out of such relationships as he matured and eventually married a woman. If an adult man continued such liaisons later in life, he risked becoming an object of ridicule or scorn. Rocke also highlights how homosexuality intersected with class and power. Wealthier men could more easily hide or protect themselves from punishment, while poorer citizens were more exposed to denunciation and arrest. Sexual relationships often reflected inequalities of status between master and servant, employer and apprentice, or noble and commoner. In some cases, sex could even function as a form of social exchange involving gifts, favors, or money. Rocke avoids judging these relationships by modern standards. Instead, he shows how they reflected the structure and hierarchy of Renaissance society. The book also explores how religion and moral reform influenced attitudes toward homosexuality. The late 15th century saw growing concern about public morality, especially during the religious revival led by the fiery preacher Savonarola. Under his influence, Florence attempted to purge itself of sin and corruption, and sodomy was condemned more fiercely than before. This shift marked the beginning of stricter policing and great fear around homosexual behavior. Yet, even during periods of repression, Rocke finds the same sex desire never disappeared. It simply became more hidden or coded in the language of friendship, loyalty, and devotion. Another theme in the book is the relationship between love and friendship. In Renaissance Florence, male friendship was highly valued and idealized. Poets, philosophers, and artists celebrated the beauty of male bonds as expressions of virtue and affection. However, this culture of intense male friendship also provided a space where erotic feelings could flourish. The line between noble friendship and forbidden desire was often blurred. Rock uses this idea to show how same sex relationships existed not as isolated acts but as part of the broader emotional life of the city. Through his analysis, Rock challenges the modern idea that homosexuality is a fixed identity. In Renaissance Florence, same sex relations were understood more as acts than as a defining feature of one's personality. A man could engage in homosexual behavior and still be considered socially normal as long as he later married and fulfilled his civic duties. The concept of a distinct homosexual identity did not yet exist. Instead, what mattered was social role, reputation, and discretion. The book's conclusion reflects on what this history means for modern readers. Rock argues that understanding the past requires setting aside modern assumptions about sexuality. Renaissance Florence was a society where sexual behavior, gender, and morality were intertwined in ways very different from today. However, by studying it, we can see how deeply human relationships are shaped by culture and power. Rock's research reminds us that desire is not simply a private matter, but also a reflection of social structures and moral values.